Hello everyone, good morning. Today is 31st of December and welcome to the newspaper analysis. So friends, in today's video, we'll take up the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper as well as we'll see if there are some good and relevant articles into the uh, Indian Express newspaper also. The PDF that I will be using here, you can download the PDF from the Telegram channel. The link for the Telegram channel has been given in the description box. Now, first of all, let's take the overview of all the important articles. First of all, let's see the important articles if they are there in the Indian Express explained section. So first article that we can see here, it talks about year when hybrid workforce can expect 5G and wait for metaverse. Now this particular article, it is saying that the 2021 was an exciting year. It was expected that many of the applications, many of the tech which might facilitate the work from home and all such kind of thing will become more updated, will become more regularized. Such kind of thing was there, and now it is said that we could expect in 2022 the metaverse, okay, and such more kind of things. However, guys, with respect to our examination, the academic aspect has not been there. The article has been written in a leisure tone, so with respect to examination, much of important thing is not there, so I'll not suggest reading it. Then guys, this article is pertaining to the investments where you could make and what to be looked in 2022. So again, not a relevant article for our examination. Then guys, moving to the Hindu newspaper. So this is the page number 1 of the Hindu newspaper, and here we can see that the first article, it is talking about decision on vaccine. Okay, so over the last few days we have seen that on the vaccination front many of the developments had come. The booster doses have been approved for the senior citizens, elderly people. Moreover, the vaccines for the people between the 15 to 18 years of age are also coming. Now guys, into this particular direction the same thing is coming. However, no need to go into this particular thing. Such evolving kind of thing is not important. Then the elections are pending, and the Omicron cases are increasing, but the political parties are not in favor of putting off the elections. Okay, this particular thing has been said by the chief election commissioner. Fine, however, not very much important. Then the China issues name for 15 places into the Arunachal Pradesh. So basically we can see that the China's unilateralism in the area is being witnessed. So we'll see this entire issue. Then guys, further moving on into this particular direction, however, here we can see that the Odisha, it has radio tagged the Indian pangolins in order to standardize the SOP for the rehabilitation of the such kind of species. We'll see this particular development as how it will be helpful and what other state governments can learn from it. All these things will be seeing it. Then further into the city section, fine, nothing very important with respect to the examination has been given. However, here you can see that the landmark court rulings during the pandemic have been discussed. Now these court rulings are by the Delhi High Court, and here some of the very good kind of references are there which we can directly utilize in our examination. So please, it will be an important article and we'll be looking it into the detail that what has been provided. Then the nothing important into the city section is going on, and further moving on, after that we reach to the editorial page. Now into the editorial page, the first article, barriers to knowledge society in the Kerala. Now this particular thing, it is talking about the left contribution. Fine, left's contribution into the education. Fine, there is a decline or education standard, etc. Basically, if we talk, fine, the article has a little bit of a political tone, and secondly the article is very much specific to one state, so it is a very microscopic politically written article, not relevant for your examination. Then further, NFHS report card. So this article is containing many of the basically general ideas with respect to the National Family Health Survey 5. Okay, so much of the important data has been given. We can see all that particular thing into this article. A good article, will be reading it. Then killing the license, it talks about the recent government Ministry of Home Affairs approach where many of the NGOs, their license have been withheld, including one of an NGO of Mother Teresa. So we'll see some of the issues into this particular respect. Now guys, this particular article, it talks about the cricket. Fine, however, with respect to the examination, much important thing is not there into the article. Then further moving, so should vaccination be made mandatory? So some of the arguments are there into the line of vaccine hesitancy that we'll see. Fine, so that is about. Then the legacy of the printed word, now not important with respect to the examination. Then after that, further moving on, the Prime Minister puts off the UAE visit. So basically, in the Indian Prime Minister was to visit the UAE, but in the direction of rising number of COVID-19 cases, the visit has been put off, and there were many of the our agreements onto the free trade agreement that was to be signed, but now this thing will not happen. So that doesn't make any much more sense for our examination. Then further moving on, the political articles etc has been mentioned, nothing very much important into this particular direction. Please move on from here. Rising number of cases, okay, you don't need to see how many number of cases are coming etc. Then the banks must pay back customers their money. So the Supreme Court has given a kind of a ruling. We'll see generally what is provided into this particular article. Fine. Then further moving on, China minister to visit Maldives, Sri Lanka. Now this particular thing is a little bit of a concern for India, because it has often been seen that the China, it always tries to influence the neighborhood of India in order to get a upper hand, so that these neighboring countries can be used against the India if a situation demands. Now the minister's visit to the Maldives and Sri Lanka might be seen as an attempt where the China is trying to woo these countries. Fine. So basically economic and security takes into the Indian Ocean region will be discussed here. Such kind of thing is provided. Then guys, further moving on, okay, after that the ongoing confrontation between the UK and the Russia is there. Fine. Where on to the Ukraine, now the confrontation is coming. Into the past also such kind of issue we have seen, that how basically the kind of an ideological warfare is going on between Russia and US on one hand, and many a times between the USA and China on the other hand. Fine. Then further moving on, Iran has announced their new space launch. Fine. Amid the nuclear talks. So this is the talks which are going on to the joint comprehensive plan of action in between. The space launch has been announced. Fine. Not very much important with respect to the examination. Further guys, moving on, okay, after that basically some kind of evolutionary kinds of trend has been discussed, not very much important with respect to the examination. India Australia FTA talks to close soon. So basically India and Australia, from so many of the years they are negotiating the free trade agreement, and now it is expected that these interim talks will be culminated and some takeaway will be coming. However, when it will happen, we'll see that what is the final decision that has come into this particular direction. Then we have the sports page. So this is about the overview of the important articles, and now let's discuss these articles one by one in the detail. Now starting up, so every class we have a GS quote which you can use in one of your GS papers. So today we'll be taking the quote from the Kofi Annan, the former United Nations Secretary General. Kofi Annan says, if corruption is a disease, then transparency is essential part of its treatment. So the corruption can only be dealt with more and more transparency. Now see, understand this particular thing. The corruption, there are the two things which bring the corruption. Number one, opaqueness, and number two, the discretion. Fine. So opaqueness and discretion will bring the corruption. Why? Because it gives a kind of an arbitrary authority to a person. Now you need to bring more and more transparency so that the corruption, if it is to be reduced, you can use this particular idea in the GS paper number 4, the topic number 7, where the issues related to the corruption information sharing has been mentioned. Even in the GS paper number 2, the good governance, you can also use this particular idea. Even in the essays, you can use this particular idea. So that is all about this particular GS quote. And now let's take the first article. Okay, so the first article that we'll be taking, it is from the Hindu newspaper, and it talks about the Odisha government's approach where they have radio tagged the Indian pangolin. Okay, now let's understand this particular issue. Where it will be important? It will be important in the GS paper number 3, environment, ecology and the conservation. It will be important. Fine. So conservation, it will be important. Now what has happened? First of all, let's understand the basic details about the Indian pangolin that has been mentioned into this article, and then we'll understand that what is this radio tag fitting which has happened. First of all, this is the pangolin. So pangolin, we can see that it is basically it is a mammal. Onto the IUCN, fine, it red list, it has been given the status of endangered. So IUCN red list, it has been given the status of endangered. Now it is an insectivore. Fine, it feeds onto the ants, termites. Fine, it is an insectivore mammal. Fine, it has the long claws. Fine, here it might not be visible, but it has very long claws, and because of that it can retrieve the animals, ants, from their mounts. Now the pangolin, it has been threatened because of his meat, and particularly here you can see onto his body there are the scales. So these scales are used into for the medicinal purposes. So for the medicinal purposes it is hunted, and for the meat the pangolin is hunted. Around the world there are the 8 major species of the pangolin, and out of the 8 major pangolin species, the Indian pangolin that you are seeing here, it is one of the largest. and as I said you that it is hunted for and its scales are used for medicinal purposes. So a lot of illegal trade between for the pangolin also happen. So therefore the pangolin is also protected in under the CITES. Now the CITES is a multilateral treaty which prohibits the ban of certain species, export of certain species. So within the CITES, the pangolin has been put under the appendix 1. So this is about the pangolin. On to such kind of a lines, there could be a question into your prelims examination also, because such kind of things have been asked. So this is all about the pangolin. Now guys, pangolin, it is a nocturnal animal. Now what is a nocturnal animal? Nocturnal animal is the one which is active during the night. Is it clear? So its hunting patterns, its reproduction, its movement, majority of the things, they are carried during the night. So the nocturnal animals are the ones who are active during night. Further moving on. Now what has happened? One of the pangolin was rescued. The pangolin was injured. Fine. It was rehabilitated. Basically, it was given the due treatment, and now the pangolin has been released into the wild. It has been released into the forest by the Odisha. Now, before releasing the pangolin into the wild, the pangolin has been fitted with the radio tag. It has been fitted with the radio tag. Now how this radio tag will be helping? So because of this particular radio tag, what can happen? We can track the valuable information about the pangolin. Fine. We can get the information about the dispersal pattern. Fine. The home range. Fine. Where these pangolins usually venture out. Fine. The survival. Fine. Of this particular animal, and all such kind of things can be identified by the radio tags. Moreover, the survival, whether the pangolin might be hunted or whether it will be surviving, such kind of things can also be identified by these radio tags. Now see, many such kind of species of animal, not only the pangolin, many species of animal, they are rescued, they get injured, and then they are just released. We don't have the information about their whereabouts, but using this radio tag will be helping, and it actually will be making the rehabilitation program and release program more standardized. Is it clear? Now the Odisha, it is a second state within the country which has radio tagged the animal. The first state was the Madhya Pradesh. So the Madhya Pradesh, after this, Odisha is the second state to release a radio tagged Indian pangolin in the wild, and such a practice should be extended to the other animals as well. So this is guys about this particular thing. I hope that you have understood it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, landmark court rulings during the pandemic. So see, first of all, here some of the rulings about the Delhi High Court has been given, which was given in order in the face of the pandemic, and these rulings show a kind of a humanitarian touch, a human touch in the judiciary's viewpoint. See, basically here some of the rulings that have been given directly we can utilize as a reference in our questions, particularly the questions related to the GS paper number 4 as well as GS paper number 2. However, there are some 1-2 other rulings also which are highly specific and highly technical, and being specific and technical, they will not be relevant for your examination. So such kind of rulings you don't need to see. Is it clear? So let's see some of the important rulings that have come by the Delhi High Court. Now the first ruling given by the Delhi High Court, it pertains to a direction that was given to the Health Ministry to explore the crowdfunding. Now what is this crowdfunding? First of all, crowdfunding means Jan Bhagidari. Again I repeat, it means the Jan Bhagidari. Is it clear? Jan Bhagidari. What is the Jan Bhagidari? Sometimes what we can do, we can pool the resources from the people. We can ask the money from the people if the people, if a particular cause is to be helped. Now what happened? Actually, there was the two children who were suffering from a rare disease, that is the Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So DMD, it is a very rare kind of a disease, but the medicine for this particular disease was very expensive. It was exorbitantly priced, and the parents were not able to afford the medicine for this DMD disease. Is it clear? The government was also not coming into this particular direction very clearly forward. So what happened? The Delhi High Court directed the Health Ministry that you can explore the crowdfunding, you can explore the Jan Bhagidari from people, you can ask the funding and can help the children. Now guys, into this particular thing, one humanitarian touch we can see what provided Justice Pratibha Singh, who gave the ruling. She said this particular thing, that it is incumbent on societies and authorities that to ensure that the life of children is not compromised in any of the circumstances. Is it clear or not? Now into this particular thing, the AIMS doctors, they had provided this particular thing that the survival rate might not be very much high, but what the Justice Pratibha Singh provided here, that even if the chances are very much slim, even if the chances of survival are very much slim, we need to make the entire effort, and this is what a civilized society stands for. So guys, a kind of a touch of compassion and a touch of empathy we can see into this particular direction, and empathy and compassion are the foundational values for the civil servants, and the judiciary has very well upheld that foundational value. Moreover, the Delhi High Court also provided this particular thing, that the right to health and healthcare is a fundamental right which is recognized by the Supreme Court as a part of the right to life under the article number 21. And not only guys this particular thing was there, but a kind of a sustainability was also directed. How the sustainability was directed? The Delhi High Court had directed the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare that they should notify a particular clause under the draft health policy for the rare disease 2020, so that a particular provision can be put that the crowdfunding can be used if in future also such kind of need is there. And on to the direction of the Delhi High Court, the government approved the national policy for rare disease 2021, and into that the provision for crowdfunding for the future was well adopted. So here we can see that the judiciary has brought a very well positive kind of a reform. So a good example you can use directly into your answers. Then there is one more ruling, fine, which is there, the second ruling. Now if what had happened, again the Justice Pratibha Singh, the Delhi High Court directed the Chief Minister of the Delhi that the Chief Minister made one of a promise during one of a press conference, and into the promise the Chief Minister said this particular thing, that the government would pay the rent for the migrant people who are not able to pay their rent because of the poverty and during the COVID-19 pandemic. So government will pay the rent. Now after that what happened, the Chief Minister was not coming very categorically onto that particular thing after making an announcement into the press conference. Then what happened, the Delhi High Court had pulled the Chief Minister and had said that the promise, any assurance or any representation given by the Chief Minister clearly amounts to the enforceable promise. You can go and you can ask for the enforcement if any such kind of thing has been said. It has been said that the implementation is have to be given by the government. So a kind of a tool has been given into the hand of people, that the people can hold the ministers, the legislators accountable what they are saying into the public rallies. Okay, so accountability has been ensured, a very good kind of thing. So this is also one thing that has happened. So guys, into the line of the accountability you can use this particular thing. Then one more ruling that has come, it is again by the Delhi High Court. So what Delhi High Court had talked, it has talked about the rights of the animal. Now first of all let's see the ruling. So the ruling was like this, that the Delhi High Court provided that every stray animal, the street dog, they have also the right to food, and the citizens also have the right to feed. So right to food and right to feed, two rights have been announced by the Delhi High Court. It has been provided, though in exercising this right the care and caution should be taken so that such kind of rights doesn't impedes with the another people right, and if it is not impeding with other people of right, then the people can feed the stray animals, okay, and they also deserve the right to get food. Now what the Delhi High Court had provided, High Court provided that every dog is a territorial being, and therefore have to be fed and tended to be places within the territory which are not less frequented. Okay, now I'll give you one quote. It is said that the moral progress of a nation is judged by the treatment that is given to the animals of that nation. Again, I'll repeat, the moral progress of the nation is judged by the treatment that is given to the animal of that particular nation. Now, why the treatment of animal becomes important? Because number one, you see this particular thing, that the animals, they cannot very categorically provide that what they want. And even without saying anything, if we are attending them, it shows a compassion, it shows a humanistic side of the people. So it shows the moral progress of a society. Secondly, basically, without any reciprocation, feeding the stray animals also show the moral uprightness, selflessness of the society. So therefore, having a compassion for the animals is becoming it is actually very important for a kind of a civilized society. So into this direction, the Delhi High Court's ruling is appreciable. So all these are the important rulings. In total, 3 rulings we have seen. Fine. So guys, please do keep it in your mind and please use in your answer. So that is all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. So this article again taken from the Hindu newspaper. It will be important in the GS paper number 2, issues related to the international relations and the policies of the neighboring nations and the impact on India. Fine, so GS paper number 2. So what has happened? Now guys, first of all, let's understand some of the background and then we'll be coming back onto this particular news. So the Arunachal Pradesh, when we talk about it, there is the Chinese version and the China says that actually the Arunachal Pradesh belongs to them, and the Arunachal Pradesh is many a times shown on the Chinese maps, and the China call Arunachal Pradesh as Zangan. Zangan also it is called as the South Tibet. Clear? Now when we see guys into the past few years, the China it is asserting the rights onto the Arunachal Pradesh more vigorously. See, six years back there was the controversy of the stapled visas. First of all, what was these stapled visas? The people living into the Arunachal Pradesh, they were given the stapled visas. Is it clear? Now the stapled visas is not a standard kind of practice. Stapled visa was kind of an indication that the people who are living in Arunachal Pradesh, they are our own citizens only, and the territory is under a dispute, so a kind of a for a kind of on a temporary arrangement the visa is being given. So stapled visa, okay, you give a regular visa to a citizen who is not a part of your country, but giving a stapled visa to Arunachal Pradesh citizens, it shows that the China believes that all the people in Arunachal Pradesh were the citizens of the China, and Arunachal Pradesh in fact is a territory of China. That was 6 years back that happened. Then what happened in 2017? The China actually issued the 6 official names for the places find the into the Arunachal Pradesh. Now issuing the 6 names for the places in Arunachal Pradesh means that the China says that these 6 places belong actually to the China, but illegally they are under the occupation of India. So the 6 names were announced by the China in Arunachal Pradesh. Now why it was done? Because guys, at that point of a time the Dalai Lama visited the Arunachal Pradesh, and the Dalai Lama is not considered, basically Dalai Lama and China, they are at loggerheads with each other. Why? Because the China believes, see, the Dalai Lama, he is the head of the Tibetan Buddhism. Dalai Lama is the head of the Tibetan Buddhism. Now Tibet was acquired by the China. Is it clear or not? And after the acquisition of the Tibet by the China in 1959, the Dalai Lama he came to the India. Now the China says that the Dalai Lama is always advocating the independence for the Tibet, which is actually the part of the China, and the Dalai Lama is obviously, it has been given the refuge in India. So basically one kind of contention ground between the India and China is also the Dalai Lama question. Okay, so the China believes that the Dalai Lama wants to instigate the people of the Tibet that they should revolt against the China and all such kind of a thing. So whenever the Dalai Lama question comes, the equation becomes little bit spoiled. Dalai Lama visited the Arunachal Pradesh in 2017, and in a retaliatory move, the China did this particular thing. Now what has happened? 15 new standardized names, not only just the names, the exact coordinates of these particular places, these are the villages etc, which have been announced by the China, and the China says that these 15 places actually belong to the China, but illegally India had captured them within the Arunachal Pradesh. Moreover, what China had said, China had called for the various Chinese civilian and military agencies that they need to take the steps for safeguarding the Chinese territory. Is it clear? Moreover guys, often now we have seen that actually the frontier villages have also been developed by the China within the Arunachal Pradesh. So basically after the LAC confrontation that started in 2020, and as the disputes were manufactured into the hot spring regions, into the Galwan region, we could anticipate that now China is preparing to bring a kind of a confrontation in the Arunachal Pradesh as well. So into this particular direction, the enforcement agencies need to be much more vigilant, because these are the patterns that we can witness, and often such patterns are first visible and then the China increases up its game. So that is all about this particular issue. Please understand this particular thing, and it become a new irritant between the India-China relations. Now we'll move to the next article. Now, killing the license. So the article taken from the editorial section. Now this particular article will be important in the GS paper number 2, the role of the NGOs in the development. The role of NGOs clearly mentioned in GS paper number 2. Now before going into this particular article, first of all let's understand the background, So first of all, the non-governmental organization, NGOs, these are the organizations, fine, which basically are distinct from the government. They are distinct from the government, and they are working either to build the capacities at the grassroots. They are actually working to bring the social justice, or they are propagating the common causes that the people aspires for. So the NGOs, they are a very important pillar of development in any of the state. Is it clear? Now guys, in India we have a thriving background of the NGOs. Fine. Now when we talk about the NGOs, guys, these NGOs, they need money obviously for their functioning. Now the NGOs can raise money via the way of subscriptions. The members who are the members of an NGO can also provide some kind of a voluntary funding for the NGO. But many of the NGOs, they also depend on to the foreign funding. Is it clear or not? But NGOs, if they want to have the foreign funding, they need to take a license. They need to get registered under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Understand this particular thing? Not only the NGOs, any organization, any person basically receiving the money from the foreign sources, they have to seek the approval under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. Now understand this particular thing, guys, that actually the problem between the NGOs and the government that had begun, it had begun in 2014. Earlier the episodic events were there, but in 2014 what happened, the Intelligence Bureau, IB came out with a report, and IB provided this particular thing that certain NGOs, they have a particular, they are basically being sponsored by a foreign hand, and certain NGOs, they want to restrict the development in India. And because of the anti-developmental activities of the NGOs, because of the vested interest of the NGOs, every year around 1.5% to 2% of the quantum of GDP is being lost by the India. Now why such kind of a thing happened, I'll explain you that also. See, if you see, guys, many of the NGOs, for example, the Narmada Bachao Andolan, it had protested against the dam activities into the Narmada. Many of the NGOs, into the name of environment, had often stalled many of the projects. When we talk about the Odisha, into the Odisha, the POXO was to be developed. Is it clear? That particular thing was also halted many a times. Fine. So into the name of tribal rights, into the name of environmental, many of the big ticket projects have been opposed by NGO. Now government says that they are doing this particular thing because of a vested interest. So the foreign funding was to be crippled, and since 2014 the equation between the NGO and the government is not very much good. What government did? Government even amended the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act in 2020 as well, and now more scrutiny over the NGOs is being carried. Now guys, what happened, as I told you, that from time to time under the FCRA you have to get a new license to receive the foreign funding. Government audits the account also. Now guys, when the NGOs are actually procuring the funding, they have to, number one, when they are getting the funding, they have to, number one, prove the source of the funding, that the source of funding, who is giving the money, fine, that is a legitimate source or not. They have to prove the usage of this particular fund, that where they will be using the fund. And thirdly, they also have to establish that the work that these NGOs will be doing, it does not qualify as a harmful work to the public interest. It is not a work which might be going against the national security. Now whether the work will be helpful in public interest or not, whether the workful will not be going against the national security or not, this is actually a very ambiguous term. Is it clear? The Ministry of Home Affairs, which actually sees this entire FCRA thing, the MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs officials, they get a lot of power. Is it clear? Any act you can say that okay, it is going against the national security, or any act you can say that okay, it is not serving the public interest. And into this particular thing, a lot of unrestricted power is into the hand. And now guys, what had happened, some of the NGOs accounts have been frozen, particularly the NGO of Mother Teresa. Is it clear? Now guys, what the government's defenses, government says that we are just following the accounting and audit procedure. Is it clear? But one pattern we can see, that specifically certain type of NGOs have been targeted. The NGOs which are basically talking onto the issues related to the pollution, climate change, human right, child labor, human slavery, health, and religious NGOs, particularly the Christian and Islamic charity organizations, they have particularly been challenged. So here we can see that the intention might not be completely bona fide, a mala fide side angle can also be seen into this particular thing. Now guys, basically a time has come that India needs to give a more transparent account, fine, as why the NGOs, their licenses are not being renewed. Moreover guys, right now what we are doing, we are following the approach of the China and Russia. Now the China and Russia, in order to kill the dissent, fine, in order to punish the NGOs, many a times they have used their NGO laws. The funding has been cut. Whenever an NGO is talking about the humanitarian abuse, these NGOs are silenced by cutting down their funding. So India is also going into this particular direction, which is not acceptable in a democracy. Is it clear? It is not acceptable in a democracy. So that is one particular thing that is coming. Now guys, the action in India over the foreign hand. Now this foreign hand argument, it is little bit blown out of the proportion. See, I told you that under the FCRA, any kind of an organization avail the foreign funding. Now understand this particular thing, that the political parties are also getting the foreign funding under the same FCRA law, but onto the foreign funding, such kind of restricted, such kind of rigid application of FCRA is not there. Through the electoral bond also they are seeking a lot of money, but onto them there is no such kind of approach, fine. So therefore targeting NGO is not very much good. Right now India is facing the COVID-19 pandemic, economic crisis there, health crisis there, Omicron cases are coming. Now we need more funding from the NGO, and therefore guys, right now we can see that the 30% drop is there into the international non-profit contribution. It will hurt the vulnerable groups, it will hurt the poor people. So please, government need to rethink onto this particular line. This is the idea that has been given into this particular editorial. So I hope that guys you have understood it, and now we'll be moving to the next article, fine. Now see, you need to understand one thing, that not only reading the line by line of the article will make a sense, until and unless you are able to decode, you should also be able to decode that okay, how this particular thing is relevant, and the background and the forward linkages you should understand. Now we'll move next. In NFHS report card, the good, the sober, the future. Now this article, it is talking about some of the highlights from the National Family Health Survey 5, which has recently been released. So the National Family Health Survey in 2020, one part of the report was released. Now the second part of the report has been released, and in total we get the final report of the National Family Health Survey 5. So we'll understand that what are the first of all trends here. Now this particular article will be important for your GS paper number 2, issues related to the social justice, fine. So that is about it. Now let's take the highlights which have been provided. Now the highlights that have been provided into this particular article is that, first of all, on the total fertility rate, India had seen a progress. See, what is the total fertility rate? First of all, total fertility rate, it pertains to how many number of birth will be given by a hypothetical woman during her reproductive age. So reproductive age, you can say, take this particular thing, that let's say that a woman is entering in the puberty in the age of, let's say, 15 years, and she will achieve the menopause, let's say, in 50 years. So from 15 to 50 years, this is the reproductive age of a woman. Into this reproductive age, how many birth will be given by a woman? Fine. That particular thing we see through the total fertility rate. Now guys, into the total fertility rate, let's say that a woman, an average woman is giving 3 birth, total fertility rate is 3. If a woman is giving 4 birth, total fertility rate is 4. Now total fertility rate of 2.1 is very much important, and this total fertility rate of 2.1 is called as the replacement rate. It means that the moment the women will achieve the 2.1 total fertility rate, the population of a country will stabilize. Why? Because husband and the wife, two people, they gave birth to 2 children, fine. When the husband and wife will die, exactly the 2 children will replace them. So 2.1 is taken as a replacement rate. In your mind a question will be there, why 2.1, why not 2.0? 2.1 is because of the margin, okay, that has been taken. Is it clear or not? So this is a particular thing, fine. The total replacement rate of 2.1, we take it. Now any country where the 2.1 will be achieved, the population will stabilize. Now if we see what are the report given by the National Family Health Survey 5, it has said that in India the total fertility rate has been declined actually from 2.2 to 2.0. So we have went even below the replacement rate. Fine, even we have went below the replacement rate. Is it clear? So it shows that the population will stabilize in India. Now, what are the reasons for decline into the fertility? It is because now the modern family planning methods are being adopted. So 56.5% people are adopting the modern family planning practices, and because of that, the population is getting to be stabilized. Moreover, there is a reduction in unmet need for family planning. What is the unmet need for the family planning? Let's say that I want to go for family planning, but I am not able to get the aids, and I'm not getting the aids for going for the family planning. So I have an unmet need. So such kind of things are also being reduced. Now guys, the next thing that has been provided here, that the 62% of the current users, they have information about the side effect of the contraceptives. As now the more number of people are having information about the side effects, they are able to make the meaningful choices also. This particular thing has been provided. Now there is also the significant improvement into the female literacy. Find the 41% of the women, they have received 10 or more years of schooling. Earlier only 36% of the women, that is into the National Family Health Survey 4, they have received 10 year or more of a schooling. Now as the women are getting more educated, there it is a direct correlation that the women who are educated, they tend to make more meaningful reproductive choices. They actually tend to have fewer children. So this particular thing is there. Moreover, the women, when they are getting education, they are also delaying their marriage, they are also working. So they are delaying their marriage, they are working. So what happens, the reproductive window gets little bit reduced. Is it clear? So that is also the thing that has come. Then the maternal health care has also improved, and it has been provided that the antenatal care, see there are actually two types of care that a mother, pregnant women needs. There is antenatal care and then there is a postnatal care. Antenatal care is before the delivery and postnatal care is after the delivery. So the antenatal care reach has increased. Fine, and now the 70% of the women are having the antenatal care. Because of that particular thing, the maternal health has improved. Postnatal care has also increased. 78% women, they are getting the postnatal care. Particularly the visits are being made by the ASHA workers, and the postnatal care has also increased. This is a good thing. Then the institutional delivery has also increased. Into this direction, it can be seen that 88.6% of the women are having the access to the institutional delivery. Fine, so around 89% we have reached. It is a very good kind of a thing. Is it clear? Then guys, further moving into this particular direction, this however, still there are certain worries also. Now what are the worries? Number one, still 11% of the pregnant women, they are not getting the institutional delivery. They are unreachable by the skilled birth attendant. They are not able to access the institutional facilities. That is a big problem. So therefore we need to actually make an effort that 100% of the institutional deliveries should be reached. Now guys, the next thing that has been provided, that basically there are certain districts which are having the institutional delivery rate of less than the national average. What is the national average rate? 89%. Certain states, they have less than the 70%, and there are the 49 such districts in India, and these districts, majority of them are into the states of Nagaland, Bihar, Meghalaya, Jharkhand, and Uttar Pradesh. So basically these states are to be targeted immediately. Fine. Then the next thing that has been provided is that actually the teenage pregnancies have been declined, but the improvement is not much. Just they have declined by 1 percentage point. Is it clear? 7.9%, around 8% of the women into the age group of 15 to 19 years, they were already mothers or they were pregnant. Fine. So around 8% of the women around 15 to 19 are facing the teenage pregnancy. It is not a desirable kind of a thing. Some more efforts are to be made. Moreover, it has been provided that we need to invest urgently onto the sexuality education. Fine, life skill education is to be given into the children. Fine, out of the school, the adolescent people, they are also needed to be given the sexual and reproductive health services. They are needed to be given an education that why the women's body is not suitable to bear a child before the 18 or at least the 20 years of age. So such kind of a sexuality education needs to be given. Reproductive health services are also to be given. Then the next thing that has come here is that guys, actually the women, they are also becoming aware about using of the hygiene products with this, and they are now are basically taking their menstrual health also very seriously into this thing. Now the 77.3% of the women, they are using the menstrual hygiene products. They are using the menstrual hygiene products such as the sanitary pads, etc. This particular thing is also very much good. Then further moving on here, basically the women empowerment has also increased, and into this particular direction we can find this particular thing, that the proportion of women who are having their own bank accounts, their number has went up. Clear? Is it clear? Now the 78.6% of the women, they are having their own bank account. Moreover, around 54% of the women, they have their own mobile phone, and one out of the three, fine, they have used the internet. 33% of the women have used the internet. So they are having their bank accounts, they are having their mobile phone, they are using the internet. It shows that the women empowerment is coming, though it is not a very refined kind of a criteria, because guys, see, you need to understand that not having a bank account is sufficient, but you need to see that whether the autonomy of expenditure is also there or not. Autonomy to spend is there or not. Many times account is there, but they are not autonomous to spend. Fine. However, still some improvement is there. We can quote it in our answers. Then further moving on into this particular direction. After that, guys, we need to provide this particular thing that there are certain more things that are to be done. It will be a kind of a way forward. We need to address the harmful practices such as the child marriages. Still, 23.3% marriages are the child marriages in India. One of the idea that has been suggested here is that increase the age of girls from marriage of from 18 years to 21 years. However, we have seen many of the articles on this line also that this particular thing might not be completely desirable. So there is a kind of a different debate already taken up. So 23.3% of the marriages are the child marriages. How to tame it? We need to empower the women. We need to empower the families. Then the next thing, the sex ratio at the birth, it has shown the slight improvement. Now the sex ratio at birth, it has increased from 1909 to 1929. Is it clear? However, guys, the natural sex ratio at birth is more than 950. Okay, so still a distance is to be covered. Now 1 in 3 women continue to face violence at their spouse. So again, a need of more women empowerment is needed. Fine, we need to enhance the status of the women. We need to transform the unequal power relations that are there, structural inequalities there that are there, discriminatory norms and discriminatory attitude towards the women are there. So basically a software approach is also needed, where the women are to be educated as well as the male are to be educated with respect to the women rights. Gender equity, gender parity is to be brought up. So that is all about this particular thing. Then women's participation in economy continues to be remain low. Around 25.6% of women, they are engaged into the paid work. So this particular female labor force participation rate is also needed to be increased. By the way, guys, if I give you one more data here, the periodic labor force survey, fine, recently it said that the female labor force participation rate has increased to 30%, but the National Family Health Survey 5 says to be at around 25%. However, neither 30% is good, and at the same time 25% is also not at all very good. So we need to work into this particular direction, that how women can be given the meaningful employment. Is it clear? So this is one more thing. We need a convergence approach. The different stakeholder, the government, the civil societies, the NGOs, public spirited individuals, all need to come together. And convergence is not only into these different pillars, but within the government also the convergence approach is needed. Different ministries need to be aligned together, so that the women empowerment, gender justice is taken as a very serious kind of a concern. So that is all, guys, about this particular entire issue. I hope that you have understood it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Meanwhile, there are certain comments. Let's take them. Sir, can you please explain the concept of how and why banks increase interest rate to bring in investment by people, related to the article that you explained 3 days back? Yes, Madhu, obviously I'll explain it, but as this particular thing pertains to one of old issue, we'll discuss this particular thing towards the end of that particular article, so it doesn't disrupt the flow of today's newspaper. So please, we'll be taking it towards the last, don't worry. Reading the article related to the National Family Health Survey 5, we found that the total fertility rate has balanced the replacement rate. Then why there is still need of population control policy? Yes, Shahid, a very good question. I'll answer this particular question by saying that no, there is not at all a need for the population policy in India. Though few months back the Uttar Pradesh government came out with a draft population bill, into which it was provided that the twin pillar approach of incentive and disincentive was being explored. People were being incentivized if they will have the 2 children, they will be incentivized if they'll have 1 children, and disincentives were there. But such kind of thing is not needed. Fine. Why? Many reasons are there. Number one, the China already, they had earlier the 1 child policy, which they changed into the 2 child policy in 2015, and now they are coming out with a 3 child policy. Even the 2 child policy have been abandoned in China. So the empirical studies never have preferred the population control. Moreover, the UNDP had already provided that India will achieve their demographic peak uh, we will prematurely be achieving our demographic peak. 12-year prematurely will achieve our demographic peak. So already India's population is going to be stabilized, and into that particular direction such kind of thing is not needed. Fine. So population control policy, fine, it is not needed as per the present patterns that we see. So that is about this thing. And now let's move to the next question article. Should vaccination be made mandatory? Now this particular article, why it has come, but guys, if you see now, what has happened, the vaccine hesitancy is increasing. We are not able to vaccinate large number of people. It is because partly a logistical problem are there, supply problem are there, and one of the issues there that there still vaccine hesitancy is there in the people. And a way to increase this particular vaccination rate is to make the vaccination mandatory. Such kind of idea is there. Now this particular idea will be important under the GS paper number 2, the rights issue. Fine. Now vaccine hesitancy is there, so therefore the state governments are coming out with their own approaches. They say that vaccination has been made and mandatory for entering in many of the public places, workplaces. Is it clear? Though central government at the same time had provided that the vaccination is voluntary, but the state government are coming out with such kind of a laws. Now understanding this particular thing, so basically it has been provided that in India the last mile vaccination has become a challenge. Fine. There are large number of people, particularly into the 50 age group of population, who have either received the first dose but they are reluctant to get their second dose. Fine. Moreover, many of them, they have not received even their first dose. So there is a very big problem. You need to actually educate the people. Fine. Because the awareness can help, but at the same time, not only awareness will be helping in the entire capacity, there also needs to be the availability of vaccine, accessibility of the vaccine, and acceptability of the vaccine. Now availability means that there needs to be a functional healthcare center which is having the stock of the vaccines. Then the accessibility, if you need to get a vaccine shot, it should be easy thing. Fine. It should not be in entirely a kind of a struggle. And third comes the acceptability. Acceptability means, okay, the vaccine is available, I can take the vaccine also, but I am not feeling very confident. Here comes the factor of acceptability. Now this acceptability is very important, and when the acceptability is not there, what is the result? When acceptability is not there, the result is the vaccine hesitancy. People don't adopt it. So therefore now what has happened, basically in India the vaccination rate has been very much less compared to the developed country. Around 23% of the healthcare workers, frontline workers, are the also ones who have not got the second dose of the vaccine. So there is a feasible strategy to make the vaccine mandatory. Now it has been provided that in the past also the vaccination has been made mandatory. What had happened during the smallpox? During the smallpox, the vaccination was made mandatory from 1965 to 1975, and only by making the vaccine as mandatory, the smallpox problem was solved. Fine. So this particular thing was there. Now the local health authorities, they have also the power to make the vaccination mandatory. If a person don't wants to still receive the vaccine, then he can go to he can approach to the judicial magistrate, and only on to certain grounds he will be given a kind of a waiver. Let's say that if he is having some kind of a medical ground on which he cannot receive the vaccination, then he can be given a waiver. But it has been provided that actually the rights of an individuals, they can be curtailed sometimes for the rights of the community. Now if let's say I'm not getting vaccinated, I might become a carrier and I might infect a large number of people. So my right, fine, my freedom can be curtailed for the community's freedom. So such kind of thing is there. Moreover, at the same time, it is provided that, see, there are anti-vaxxers. Who are these anti-vaxxers? Anti-vaxxers are the people who drive the propaganda against the vaccination. They say that the vaccination is harmful, the vaccination is problematic. So against these anti-vaxxers, fine, we need to start a campaign, and we need to see, you can kill the fake information or the incomplete information only by more information. So we need to drive a campaign against them also. So one argument is that yes, we can make the vaccination mandatory, but at the second hand, it is said that obviously making entirely this thing as mandatory will not be solving the entire problem. What is the problem? Problem is that the people are not educated. So the education approach needs to be more important. Fine, the legal approach, making it mandatory, is also fine, but education is more important. Rumor mongering groups, the anti-vaxxers, they need to be dealt more seriously. Fine. Fine. Even you don't just need not to make sure that it is needed to be mandatory, rather vaccine equity is also very much important. All the areas needs to have the vaccine. Moreover, in onto the global scale also the vaccine equity is important. The World Health Organization has provided that the developed country now, instead of giving the booster shots, should provide the vaccines to the poor countries. Fine. So vaccines to the poor country is not there, so the vaccine equity is also not there. So actually we need to focus on the vaccination of the entire world, and into this thing shared approach needs to be taken to give the vaccines to the poor countries as well. There is a COVAX program which is being run by the WHO. Under the COVAX program, the countries they give the vaccines, and these vaccines then are given to the poor countries. But under this COVAX program, many of the countries had not fulfilled their complete obligation. So we need to consider that particular thing also. Is it clear? India, being the pharmacy of the world, need to increase the vaccine production so that the poor countries can be helped. So this is, guys, the entire thing that have come into this particular direction. Now, making the vaccine mandatory, you need not to have only one viewpoint that yes, make it, or no, don't make it at all. You need to have a balanced approach into this particular direction. So that is all, guys, about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Banks must pay back customers their money on demand, says Supreme Court. Now basically you see this thing that the people they deposit their money, fine. However, many a times banks are not reciprocating the demand of the people when the people want to withdraw their money. So the Supreme Court had just make an observation that the relationship of a bank with its customer is not just of a trust, it is of a debtor and creditor, and there is a contractual obligation on to the banks to give the money whenever the people need it. So guys, it is actually a kind of a fraud case that was going on, and as a part of this particular direction observation has been made. However, apart from this, nothing more substances there into this particular article. So that is all just about it. Fine. So guys, that is all about the today's newspaper, and there was one of a doubt of the Madhu. Let's clear that particular doubt also. Fine. So Madhu asks, sir, can you please explain the concept of how and why banks increase interest rate to bring in investment by people? Okay. So this particular, as you explained 3 days back. So I hope, Madhu, you are asking about the Indian Express article that we have discussed. So what I was explaining, I will tell that particular thing first. So what happened when this COVID-19 pandemic began? What happened when this COVID-19 pandemic began? Basically, the USA. Now the USA's central bank is the Federal Reserve. Now what happened? The USA central bank, Federal Reserve, they reduced the interest rate. They reduced the interest rate. Why they reduced the interest rate? It was because so that the people can borrow more and more money and can invest that particular money. And when the money will be invested back into the country, what will happen? Obviously the demand will be created and the economy will come back again onto the regular pace. Now how this particular thing will be helping, I'll explain it more little bit. Let's see this particular thing, that there is one person into the US, okay, and he wants to establish a new plant. He wants to establish a new plant for some manufacturing. Now if the interest rate is less, what he can do? He can borrow the money, fine, and he can establish a new plant for the manufacturing. Now obviously when he is establishing the new plant for the manufacturing, many more people will get employment, and actually that particular money will be going back into the economy, and obviously economy will get a help. So the interest rates were reduced so that more and more people borrow more and more money for increasing the production, for enhancing their manufacturing capacities, etc. So interest rate got reduced. Now guys, as the interest rate got reduced here into the USA, what happened? Now the people, fine, if they needed to, now let's say I have a lot of money but interest rate is very much less. If I put money into the bank, obviously I will not be getting any kind of a revenue, not I will be getting a much of a profit into the US. So what happened? Large number of investors, they came to the India. Large number of investors, they came to the India, and they invested their money into the Indian stock market. Is it clear? They invested the money here. Is it clear? So now what happened? As they were investing their money into the India, what happened? India received a large number of the FPI investment, large number of FPI, fine, foreign portfolio investments were coming into the India. Okay, a foreign surge was also there into the India. Now guys, what had happened? The USA, they are now saying that what we are doing now, the fiscal stimulus that we were giving, the direct and the indirect fiscal stimulus, we are withdrawing it back. And as they are withdrawing that fiscal stimulus, the interest rate that were very much low into the US, USA, now these interest rate will also be increased. And as the interest rate into the USA are going to be increased, what will happen? Whatever the money that flew into the India, it will now fly back to the USA. Is it clear? Now if we need to reduce this particular flyback of the money in India, we need to increase more and more interest rates. Is it clear? So this is a kind of a basic idea that was there, which we discussed here. Fine. However, guys, there are many of the technical jargons into this particular issue also that I have deliberately avoided in order to make it easily comprehensible. Moreover, such kind of a technical jargons are not needed for your GS paper number 3, where the Indian economy is mentioned. So you don't need to have that particular thing also. Is it clear? So this is the most simplistic explanation that is there, and by which you can justify any of the question in exam if it is coming. So that is about it. Higher interest, higher coupon rate, higher return on their investment, higher profit to person. People shift from low interest to, yes, that is exactly the same thing. Okay, so that is about this particular thing. I hope that the doubt is clear now. Fine. I hope, Madhu, your doubt is clear. Fine. Meanwhile, very good morning to all the people who had wished me the morning. Thank you, everyone. So that is all about the today's article. Now, that is all. We'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then, please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.